I knew my sister resented me, but I never understood how deep that resentment ran until she slid a birthday gift across the table, grinning like she'd already won. A pocked white envelope. A DNA testing kit. "Maybe this will explain why you're someone else's mistake," she said loud enough for the clinking forks to hush. The words stung like acid. I felt the air shift in the dining room of our childhood home outside Seattle. My throat closed up. I nodded and tucked the envelope away. A week later, I mailed the kit. Not because I believed her, but because I needed to see. I needed to know what truth she so casually offered as a weapon. Most people think family is soft, a place to fall. For hours, it was hardwood floors at midnight, cold, unforgiving, echoing with silent judgments. Growing up in the Walker House in the suburbs north of Seattle taught me early how to make myself invisible. I was the sort of child who did her homework without being reminded, who sat quietly reading while my sister, Alicia, dominated the living room with loud laughter and dramatic stories. My mother, Margaret, seemed to orbit Alicia like she'd discovered a second moon, always distant, always favoring her. If Alicia brought home a B, it was an impressive showing of her charm and social presence. If I returned straight A's, Mom merely said, "That's nice, Emily. Could you fetch the bread?" As though I were a house guest instead of her daughter. I left Seattle by the time I turned 34. I moved to Portland, found a job as a junior planner at an environmental nonprofit. My weekends were filled with empty coffee cups and quiet streams, a far cry from the simmering resentment I left behind. I clung to the neutrality of olive green sweaters and early Saturdays, the simple rhythm I never had as a kid. When my father, Michael Walker, died unexpectedly, I felt a silent pull. He had been my one safe harbor, a quiet man, gentle, not the type for big hugs, but the kind to rest a warm hand on your shoulder when you felt hidden. At his funeral I realized no one else offered me that warmth. No one else made me feel seen. 3 months after the funeral, my mother requested a small gathering at the old house. "A birthday dinner for me," she said. Her voice sounded overly bright on the phone, like an actor reading lines. Something in that brightness made my spine tighten. When I entered the hallway of the Walker house, I recognized the scent immediately. Lemon polish mixing with old wood and regret. The chandelier lit the foyer, but the glow felt shallow, like the house had lost more than its owner. Alicia sat at the dining table flipping through glossy real estate magazines, her skin tanned, her smile too perfect. Mom poured wine for herself and Alicia, but not for me. Her hand shook as she filled the glass. I asked softly, "Have they settled Dad's will yet?" Mom's face froze. She glanced at Alicia, then turned away. "Not yet," she said, tone clipped, like she'd been coached. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Alicia smirked slightly. Dinner began. The air was stale with unresolved tension. Every word felt rehearsed. Alicia prattled on about her husband, their upcoming kitchen renovation in a farmhouse style. Mom laughed at each sentence, even the dull ones. Laughter for performance, not joy. When I spoke, the world dimmed a little. My voice felt small, swallowed in the corners of the room. Halfway through, Alicia leaned back and fixed me with a too bright stare. "So, Emily," she said sweetly, that same sharp smile, "enjoying your life in Portland?" Before I could reply, she dove into another tale about her new job, new friends, the house she'd soon own. The message was clear. I was background noise, a footnote in a story she was writing around herself. But beneath the surface of her casual cruelty there was something else. Anticipation. A slow hunger. A sense that what came next was what she had been building toward. At dessert, a store-bought cake that sat uncut in the center, she pushed back her chair as though preparing for a ceremony. Then she reached for the small envelope still wrapped in silvery paper and pushed it toward me. "This is for you," she said, her voice quiet now. "Open it." My fingers trembled as I peeled back the paper. The room fell silent. The soft hum of the refrigerator sounded like a spotlight on me. Inside, the DNA test kit. "Maybe this will explain why you're someone else's mistake," she whispered under her breath. Mom flinched, eyes darting. But she said nothing. The humiliation was thick, a heavy blanket suffocating me. But what cut deeper than shame was a flash in Mom's eyes. Fear. A quiet panic, like she'd exposed more than family secret. She'd exposed truth. That night, back in my old bedroom, walls painted pale lavender, the color I picked when I was 15, I rifled through boxes long left unopened. I searched for proof. Evidence of something real. Behind stacks of old school books and childhood dolls, I found an envelope out of place. Its edges were worn, the dust around it disturbed. Inside was an old photograph, Mom holding me as an infant, and standing next to her, a man I didn't recognize. On the back, in Mom's slanted script, "I'm sorry. I had to protect you." My hands shook. I took photos of the image, document, everything. I stared at the DNA kit now placed on my nightstand like a loaded gun. She had expected me to run away. She had expected me to deny her challenge. But I didn't. I mailed the kit first thing next morning at the Portland post office. Not for her. For me. 5 weeks later, on a quiet Thursday afternoon in the non-profit office, my phone buzzed. A message from the testing company. Results ready. I tapped open the report. No biological link to the Walker family. Then, a match. Another surname. Unknown. A lineage I'd never heard of. I exhaled slowly. For the first time I tasted clarity. I screenshot the result, attached it to a single question in our family chat. "Does anyone want to explain this?" The silence that followed was heavy. Then my phone buzzed with my mother's name. On the line, her voice was ragged. She wasn't weeping for me. She was frightened for herself. "Emily, honey. I think you should delete that message. You don't understand. It's not what you think." She begged. She didn't apologize. She didn't call my sister. "Just me." She said, "It's complicated." Then came a text from Alicia. 4 cold words. "Well, now you know." No guilt. No regret. Just triumph. That night, I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding with a mix of dread and resolve. I dialed Alicia. She answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was smooth. Too smooth. "Why, Emily? Why now? Why did you push this DNA crap?" I demanded, voice tight. "Why humiliate me?" She laughed softly. A sound that made my bones cold. "You always played the good daughter. So innocent. So invisible. Mom owed me. Dad owed me. And now, I'm getting what's mine." She hung up. The click echoed through the empty room like a gavel. I couldn't sleep. I barely breathed. I started calling. Old neighbors, distant relatives, anyone who might remember the late 1980s. I asked innocuous questions. "Do you remember a man named Hartman living near Margaret Walker? Did he visit often?" I collected stories, rumors, half-remembered details. After weeks of digging, a picture began to form. My biological father, a man Margaret had known before she met Robert Walker. A man she never married. A secret she had buried when she married Robert for security. And a secret she had kept, wrapped in silence for decades. I needed real help. I needed someone who could fight what I sensed was coming. I hired an attorney. Laura Bennett, a legal professional known in Portland for her work with messy inheritance disputes and complicated family claims. I handed over the DNA report, the photograph, the old messages from Alicia, the evasive behaviors from Mom. Laura stared at the folder on her desk, then looked at me with calm certainty. "You're right," she said. "This isn't about resentment. This is about erasure. 3 days later, I got the call that changed everything. The firm handling family estates in Seattle, headed by Daniel Caldwell, wanted a meeting. It was time to read the final will of Robert Walker. I froze. The morning of the will reading, Seattle tasted cold and sharp. The rain tapped at the taxi windows as I sat beside Laura. I felt dislocated, as though the city were a memory I was visiting, but no longer belonged to. We arrived at Caldwell and Partners' office on the top floor of a gray glass tower. The kind of place where deals are sealed, and truths revealed. The mahogany conference table and floor-to-ceiling windows made everything feel official, final. Mom entered first. She looked worn, her hair pinned messily, eyes red and hollow, clutching her purse like it was the only piece of normal she had left. She didn't look at me. Didn't nod. She sank quietly into a far chair. Alicia followed, her heels clicking sharply on marble. She wore an expensive gray pantsuit, her posture rigid, eyes cold. She brought her own lawyer, a slick man with a dark suit and colder smile. Caldwell entered last, carrying a thick tan folder. He closed the door slowly. Silence settled like a weight. He looked at each of us, one by one, then spoke. When Robert Walker drafted his will, he anticipated complications. He asked me to handle this reading personally if certain conditions arose. Alicia smirked. A small, dangerous twist of lip. Her eyes landed on me like a challenge. Caldwell opened the folder, cleared his throat. I, Robert Allen Walker, declare this my final will and testament. I bequeath 70% of my estate, including real property, investment accounts, and all business interests, to my daughter, Emily Walker. The room cracked open. The air rushed out. Alicia sprang to her feet. That's impossible. She isn't your daughter. I have DNA proof. Caldwell held up a hand. Sit down, please. His voice was firm. There's more. His eyes found me, then shifted toward the door where Mom, Margaret Walker, stood frozen. He continued. I have known since Emily was 2 years old she is not my biological child. Yet I chose to raise her, love her, and treat her as such. I leave her my legacy because of who she is, not who she came from. Alicia's face went ashen. Margaret closed her eyes, tears leaking down her cheeks. I anticipated challenges, Caldwell said. So 8 months before his passing, Mr. Walker hired a private investigator to monitor any suspicious activity related to his estate. He tapped the folder. I now present evidence. Bank transactions showing unauthorized withdrawals, $60,000 taken from his accounts during his final illness. Documents show repeated attempts by Alicia to persuade her father to change the will, meetings with lawyers, pressure on Margaret, including the mailing of the same DNA kit disguised as birthday gift. Alicia's lawyer opened his mouth, but Caldwell cut him off. You were not told to sit in on that investigation. Not part of the agreement. Then Caldwell placed a folded letter on the table. Addressed to me. In Robert Walker's handwriting. Emily, I chose you. Because you earned it. Because I saw your heart. Not by blood but by love. I stared at the page, my vision blurred. I heard muffled gasps. Not mine. Alicia's face crumpled. She looked small. Not the confident sister I grew up under. Just a frightened woman cornered by truth. Her lawyer leaned close. You can contest, he began. But Caldwell shook his head. You can challenge the clauses. But in no contest, clause activates repayment of all sums advanced to you, the 60,000 plus outstanding debts, and forfeits any inheritance. The court will not uphold your claim. Laura, my attorney, stood. Her voice calm, but strong. The will explicitly names Emily Walker as my client's heir. The evidence clearly shows Mr. Walker's intent. Any contest is not only frivolous, It triggers the no contest clause. A single breath filled the space. Then Alicia erupted. This is fraud. He was on his deathbed. She manipulated him. I rose, my voice steady though my hands shook. You manipulated everything, I said. You pushed bills, pressured Dad, pretended love, and sent a DNA kit wrapped as a birthday gift. I didn't need to prove anything. The truth was always there. You just chose to ignore it. Silence again. Softer now. Caldwell closed the folder and stood. The will stands as read. Emily Walker inherits. I sank back into my seat. The engine in my chest quieted. The tension drained from my limbs with a slow, starting release. Later, outside the glass tower, rain fell lightly. My mother hovered at a distance. Her eyes hollow, her posture defeated. She approached, voice barely a whisper. Emily. I'm so sorry. I shook my head. I'm not the one who needs sorry. I'm the one leaving. Wait, she began, but I cut her off. You lived with a secret. You raised me in lies. I deserve better than that. I deserve peace. I walked past her and didn't look back. I felt the weight of decades lift, as though I had shed skin I no longer needed. In the months after, my sister never contacted me again. Her lawyer dropped the case. The bank reversed the withdrawals. The house and investments passed entirely to me. The loan she attempted to claim turned into her debt to the estate. I sold the Walker home. I closed the old account, transferred everything quietly, severed every tie that had ever bound me to that painful past. I moved across the country to Vermont. A quiet town, small houses, snow in winter. I opened a small bookshop by a calm river. I did not delete the photograph, the letter, the DNA results. I kept them locked away, not as weapons, but as proof. Proof that I belonged somewhere. My mother tried to call once. I let it ring. Some endings aren't loud. They're just choosing yourself over pain. If you ever felt invisible, like you didn't belong, like your existence was a mistake someone forgot to own, know this. You deserve more than the people who ignored you. You deserve a life that belongs to you. Moral lessons. This story reminds us that family cruelty can cut the deepest, but truth has a way of defending those who stand firm in their integrity. No matter how others try to label you or diminish your worth, remember that their jealousy and insecurity are reflections of them, not you. Stay grounded, stay prepared, and trust that dignity always outlasts deceit. When people mock you, betray you, or try to push you out, let their actions strengthen your character, not shape your identity. Your value is not determined by a room full of doubters, and your future cannot be stolen by those who fear your strength. Hold your head high, walk your path confidently, and trust that the right moment will always reveal who you truly are, and who they've been all along.